Hello, everyone out there tuning in. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ashley Bickle. I work in the recruitment department at Loyalist College, and I'm so fortunate to have here with me today Pat Finnegan, who is a professor with our Police Foundations program at Loyalist. How are you doing today, Pat?
I am doing absolutely outstanding, Ashley. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, it's great to see everyone today. We have this fantastic chat feature that's a part of Zoom. You'll find out at the very bottom of your screen there. So if you click on that, there is a white sidebar that will pop up on your right-hand side, and you can chat directly to Loyalist College. Ask us any questions that you may have. We're going to be answering program-specific questions at the very end of the session. So we look forward to getting your questions in there. Ask away, and we can't wait to hear from you guys. All right, Pat, let's jump right into it. Do you mind telling us a bit about yourself and your professional background?
Okay, I grew up in Prince Edward County, where I'm still living today. So left home for a little while, but ended up back here. Wanted to be a police officer since I was 5 years old. So I recognize that that's rare that you know what you want to do when you're five and you end up doing it. But that was me. So I went off to post-secondary education, got hired by the OPP, and went north to a place called Iroquois Falls, which is about a 10-hour drive north of here, 45 minutes northeast of Timmins. Spent 4 years there, transferred to Kingston Township OPP, which was kind of a municipal policing setting. Spent about another 2 years on the road, became a detective, spent about 7 years as a detective doing all kinds of interesting things, homicides, sexual assaults, robberies, frauds, major projects, you name it. Then got promoted to detective sergeant, worked in a specialty fraud unit, then later went to Quinte West as the area crime supervisor, got promoted to detective staff sergeant, and was responsible for a big chunk of Eastern Ontario supervising major crime. And then got promoted to inspector and became the detachment commander, which is the equivalent of chief of police for those people who are familiar with municipal police services. And I was posted at the Napanee OPP, which is now called Lennox and Addington OPP, and that's where I spent the last 10 years of my career.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that background, Pat, and such an extensive background at that. Lots of knowledge when it comes to policing, of course, which I think is really fabulous. And then you bring that into the program, which is really an incredible thing. Pat, could you start by telling us a bit about the Police Foundations program at Loyalist?
Sure. First of all, I think it's a great program. If you're struggling with, should I go to university? Should I go to college? My answer to that would be, are you absolutely 100% sure that you want to be a police officer? And if you are, then and university is the way you're leaning, then go ahead. But if you'd like to find out whether or not it's really for you, you won't find that out in university. So come to Loyalist, because you're going to be working with police officers as your instructors, both active and retired. And then you're going to spend 8 weeks in placement setting with real police officers, finding out exactly what it feels like to stay up all night, to go to a bunch of calls, to be bored, etc. So it's great for that. Year one is what we call the Common Justice Studies year. And what I mean by that is there are 4 different programs that fall under the umbrella of justice studies. There's the community justice services, there's border security, private security and investigations, and then police foundations. So even though you say year one, I want to be in police foundations, when you look around the classroom that you're sitting in, there might be 35 students there. Student to your left is from community justice services. The student from your right is border security. Maybe somebody in front of you is police foundations. You're all mixed together. That's why we call it a common year. And one of the advantages of that is it allows you to kind of check in with other folks and find out, hey, how's it going? What do you like? What do you dislike? And then at the end of year one, if you decide, hey, you know what, the program I'm in isn't the one that I want to be in, and I just went through this with a student who sent me an email about 2 weeks ago and said, I'm in criminal justice studies and I'd like to switch over to police foundations. What do? The great news is, because Loyalist has this common year, you do not have to repeat a single course. You have all the prerequisites for all the programs. It's virtually a stroke of a pen. You say, this is what I want to do. We send a couple emails, we make it happen for you. So then second year, when you look around the room, it's all police foundation students. And then of course the curriculum really focuses and concentrates 100% on a career in policing.
That's awesome, Pat. Thank you so much for that background and explaining that first common year. Could you tell us how students are learning within this program?
Well, so Loyalist as a college as a whole is very proud of and very good at creating experiential learning opportunities. In other words, to put that in really plain language, creating opportunities for you to learn by doing, by creating experiences that you can relate to. And that's certainly from year one to the end of year two. That's one of the goals is, even in a first year law lecture, I teach a criminal and a civil law course. And so we could be talking about a particular case. And rather than me just tell the story of the case, I'll get students to come up to the front of the room and act it out. And some of them are nervous. Well, I don't know what to do. You don't have to do much. Just come up, and then I'll kind of be the director and tell you, do this, do that. If you're somebody that the police have approached on the street, try to move to your left. Okay, police officers, tell that person he or she can't move, block them. And then we ask the class, okay, is this person detained yet? Is there a difference between psychologically detained and physically detained? So we try to make it really memorable. And my whole mantra, my belief is that teaching and learning should be fun, first and foremost. If it's fun, it's memorable and it gets internal. It doesn't mean that you're not learning as much as somebody else who's not having fun. But yes, every opportunity that we get to create experiences within the classroom, to act out scenarios, that is the focus.
For sure. Thank you so much for that, Pat. And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but could you tell us about your program's experiential learning opportunities?
So aside from being in the classroom, so for instance, in police powers, we take it a little step further. So when you're in second year, then we might be talking about what arbitrary detention means in the law. And so rather than just say, read this article about that, or, here's a chapter in a textbook to read on this, we'll create some scenarios and act them out. So we have police gun belts, and with the fake gun, they call them blue guns. They're blue in color and they're made of plastic, and real handcuffs. And the students will throw the gun belts on, and we have little portable radios, and somebody can be the dispatcher, and we'll have a little script going, and somebody will sit outside the room, and so they'll call in this scenario, and then the students act it out. And if you're one of those students sitting there going, oh, I don't want any part of that, I don't like doing that, I don't like being put on the spot, you don't have to be, because I guarantee you that there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 people with their hands straight up in the air going, I want to do this, pick me. And so you participate by sitting back and watching that and enjoying that, and then we debrief that. And everybody gets a chance to speak and contribute. So again, it becomes very, very memorable. And what I see happen is, doesn't matter how entertaining or engaging I try to be at the front of the room, when your peers are at the front of the room, you're paying attention because you know what that feels like. You're nervous for them. And so now everybody's paying attention to see what happens next. So we do that. And then of course we go a step further with placement, which is 8 weeks, 4 weeks in semester 1 of year 2 and 4 weeks in semester 2 of year 2. And they both come at the end of the 14 weeks. So you're in class for 10 weeks, goes by like in the blink of an eye. And then all of a sudden you're in placement. And there's 2 placements. There's the frontline policing placement, and I'll talk just a bit about that. So that means being placed with a police agency. We've got a tremendous list of community partners: Belleville Police, Cobourg Police, Port Hope Police, and all the surrounding OPP detachments. All of the detachment commanders are friends and colleagues of mine that I've worked with. So we've got a great relationship with them. And so we figure out who you're the best fit for, and we send you to that detachment or police service. And there's different, styles. If you're in Quinte West, you won't work the midnight shift. You'll work with a bunch of different officers, day shift and afternoons, for reasons I won't bother explaining here. If you go to Napanee, they'll take as many as 4 students in Napanee. You get paired up with a coach officer, and you're with that person for the 4 weeks, and you work whatever they work. So you go call to call with that person for 4 weeks. So day shift starts at 6 a.m. So guess what? You start at 6 a.m., goes to 6 p.m., and night shift is 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., or you could end up working a 3 to 3 shift. But, maybe you find out that staying up all night isn't something that you can handle. Or maybe you were afraid of that and you find out, hey, you know what? As long as it's busy, you're okay. and you think that's a lot of fun. The second placement is called the community engagement placement, and it's focused on exposing students to all kinds of really cool community slash policing opportunities. So those students work with me very, very closely for a 4-week period. We do volunteer work. We do a crime prevention program called Lock It or Lose It with Belleville Police and with Napanee. We go to 2 real live police service board meetings and meet mayors and police service board chairs. We watch a few TED Talks, but instead of watching them in the classroom, we go to a police detachment. Like I use Prince Edward as an example. We'll go there, use their boardroom, watch the TED Talk, debrief it, and then the detachment commander, John Hatch, will come in, and he's got a little show that he likes to put on, and he engages the students and asks questions. And we do a road hockey tournament in the town of Deserano, where we get all the local youth out. We get a couple of police cars down there. Police officers in uniform come out and play. We cook hot dogs, play music. That's called pro-social youth engagement. And I can tell you that when we first started this placement opportunity, it's been around, I think, 3 years now. You know, some of the students thought, well, this was prize B. This wasn't going to be as good. And now I have students begging me for an opportunity to do one of each. And that's our goal. If we can make that happen, you will do one of each. But you will learn and experience things on that community engagement placement that will be invaluable to you for the rest of your career.
Thank you so much for that great answer, Pat. Could you tell us what makes your program so unique?
Well, I think it's unique. I think it's unique amongst the other colleges, because of the passion and the commitment of the faculty that are involved. You know, we've got Michael Ferreira, who was 8 years with the Belleville Police. He was the program coordinator up until this year. I've taken over because Michael's gone on sabbatical. He's taken some time to really to get reacquainted with frontline policing. He's going to be doing some ride-along with some local police agencies and taking some other university courses. There's myself, of course, a 30-year veteran of the Ontario Provincial Police, lots of different experiences. We've got Kim Bagg, who's a staff sergeant with Durham Regional Police, so she's still working and teaching. We've got Sean Fitzgerald, who just retired as an inspector with York Regional Police, I believe it is, and he's new to Loyalist, and students are really connecting well with Sean. Joe from the Belleville Police, his last name escapes me at the moment, but signed on with us last year. Who am I missing? Scott Semple, who's the detachment commander out of Napanee. He's got my old job. Scott teaches with us from time to time. So these aren't folks who just read a little bit about policing in a book somewhere. These are people that are, you know, many of them were Loyalist students and now have gone on to do great things in their career. Scott Semple was a tactical team, a SWAT team. He's sniper trained. I mean, all of those experiences. And of course, what that means is you're in the classroom and you never know when it's going to happen. I certainly never know what's going to happen, but you'll be trying to make some sort of a point, and then this story comes into your head, and you hadn't thought about it maybe in 10 or 15 years, and I'll just kind of get quiet for a minute, and the students will look at me, and then I'll say, you guys want to hear a story? And of course, I'm teasing them because everybody wants to hear a story. And so, yeah, we can digress a little in some of the stories, but later students will tell me, I remember what you teach me better than so many of my classes because the stories ring true. The story, and so I truly believe that storytelling is the greatest form of teaching. And so you've got all these folks that care deeply about policing and all this different experience and all this enthusiasm and passion. So I think we're cutting edge in terms of the content, the curriculum, the delivery, the quality, the faculty. I'm really proud to be a part of the Loyalist team.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So many great faculty members bringing so much to the table and to the students. I think that is such a huge thing. So could you tell us what students enjoy most about your program?
Oh, without a question, placement is the crown jewel of the program. Not every college offers placement. I think St. Lawrence is trying to get back into it now. But you know, think about that. 14 weeks is the semester. You get through 10, and then all of a sudden, so for instance, in the fall, the last 4 weeks before Christmas break, you're out on a placement, finding out, experiencing real world experiences, meeting people, seeing new things, and learning just as much, if not more. But you're not in a classroom. There's work, there's reflection assignments that you have to contribute to, but we're not asking people to write 10,000 word essays about their experience. We're just asking them to think deeply and reflect a little bit on paper about what's happening. So placement is absolutely number one.
For sure. And I'm a grad myself from the Police Foundations program, Pat, as you know, and placement's such an exciting, such a key thing, and you really do submit what you've learned in class, like in those placements. I truly believe that. So, Pat, could you tell us a bit about where your students are finding work upon graduation?
Sure. So first of all, a diploma in police foundations doesn't prohibit you from changing your mind. If you decide later, you know what, I think I want to work for a correctional facility, or I think I'm interested in customs and border security, I think I'm interested in private investigation. There's so many transferable skills that are part of the policing curriculum that would apply to so many other professions that the people are going to recognize that. And so that's just one part of you and your resume. But what we're trying to do is get people hired with police services. I know of a number that have been hired by the OPP, RCMP, military police, Belleville Police, Kingston Police, police services all across the country.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Pat. Now we come to our final question before we get into our participants' questions here. And that final question that I have for you, Pat, what do you love most about Loyalist?
Oh, that's an easy question. When I decided I was going to do this, I had some people kind of warn me not to, and they said, you're not going to enjoy that. And I had done some teaching for about 6 years after the Paul Bernardo inquiry, and I was part of a group that designed a new course for police officers in Ontario on how to manage multi-jurisdictional homicide investigations. And so I toured around the province teaching, and they said, well, you were teaching cops who are being paid to learn, you weren't teaching students, and you're going to have problems. Boy, were they wrong. I have had no problems whatsoever. I haven't even had a student be disrespectful to me in a classroom in 3 years. I haven't even had someone say something rude to me. And I worked really, really hard at being a 55-year-old, don't even know my own age, the bald guy who's, there's a couple generation gaps there, right? But I've got a 25-year-old son, a 22-year-old daughter, and a 17-year-old daughter. And so this is in my wheelhouse. This is as relevant as it can be. And so far, so good. Actually, they still get me. And I walk out of the classroom usually with a big grin on my face saying, I can't believe I get paid to do this, because I enjoy being with the students and engaging with them. And I really, really work hard, as I know many others do as well. I tell them, look, I work for you. You pay 100% of my salary. I work for you. I'm here to make this a positive experience for you. It's not the other way around. You're not in high school anymore, you're in college. And so we have a great, respectful, fun relationship. And without a question, students are what puts the smile on my face.
Absolutely. Very well said, Pat. Thank you so much. Now, as I mentioned, we do come to the portion of our segment here where we turn to our audience and we answer your questions. Pat, are we ready to get into those questions? We've got some great ones coming in.
I'm ready.
All right, sounds good. So Pat, our first question here, is there a lot of group work within this program?
I don't know if I'd use the word a lot. There's certainly group work. And if you're someone who shies away from group work, I get it, because in a group of 4, 2 are going to work really hard. Number 3 is going to contribute a little bit. Number 4 might not show up at all, except for the final presentation. And when they're standing at the front of the room and they have to turn their back and look at the slide and read it off the slide, I know they didn't do the work. Hopefully you won't hear this truck that's coming down the road to take away my recycling. So yes, we do a lot of group work because there's so many different experiential kind of learning activities that lend itself to the group work. And one of the things that it helps you do is, if you're shy or you're nervous about group work, this is a chance for you in a very safe environment to get better at that. And public speaking is a skill that you need to get better. If you're going to be a police officer, you need to be comfortable. I remember the first car I ever pulled over, I was 22 years old. And I think that the gentleman I pulled over might have been 40, 42. And, he was shaking like this when he handed me his license. I was shaking just as bad when I took it away from him, because this was, I was on display. I'm wearing a costume. You're very, very conscious that people are looking at you. It takes a while to settle into that. And so the more you can expose yourself to that, just like anything else, getting to that 10,000 hours that makes you an expert in just about anything, the better off you'll be. So it's group work, but let me assure you, it's fun group work. It's a chance for you to put some really good marks on the board and learn something at the same time. So if you love group work, you're going to love the program. If you don't like it, you're going to learn to love it. I promise you
that. Great answer, Pat. Thank you so much for that. We've got another one rolling in here. And I know you spoke a little bit about placements already, but what are some of the unique placements that students have had?
So actually, there's another one that we've been experimenting with, and students might not think that this sounds too cool when they first hear it, but Pathways for Independence is a local service in the Belleville area who work with people with acquired brain injuries. And so they asked us if we would be interested. And actually, so I'm having one of those moments right now where I'm thinking out loud to myself, I wasn't prepared for this. Never has there been a better time for this. What I'm referencing is what's going on in the world right now. You may be saying to yourself, why do I want to join a profession that it's becoming popular to bash at the moment? Because, sorry guys, but police bashing is in right now. This won't last long, and the focus will reshift. And so we're just going to have to weather the storm here. But we sent a couple of students out, and so they would go with caseworkers, and they would spend an afternoon or a morning with someone with an acquired brain injury. And you'd say, well, what do they do? Well, they sit there, they engage them in conversations, and they provide support. And you say, well, what's the value in that? Well, learning how to communicate with someone with a brain injury or a diagnosed mental illness is absolutely critical. We have a course called Police Response to Mental Health Calls for Service. And one of the things that students learn is someone who's suffering from a mental health episode and for whatever reason is holding a knife or a screwdriver or some sort of weapon in their hand, doesn't respond to a police officer yelling, police don't move, drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. That only makes it worse. So they're going to learn all about de-escalation techniques that'll help them, what we call Plan B, that will help them communicate and engage with that person and de-escalate the situation safely so that nobody gets hurt. And so Pathways for Independence was an opportunity to do that. So we were just experimenting with that. And the students that we sent liked it so much. Both of them were offered jobs and got hired. And they're saying, this isn't my lifelong job, but this is my for now job. And they think it is going to prepare them better for policing. And I tell you, it's going to look fantastic on a resume. So it's all about that empathy, that connecting with and meeting people where their story lives, right? It's realizing that you're dealing with real people with real problems and trying to make that connection and not policing in some sort of robotic way. So that was a unique one. There is a component of placement we haven't talked about, which is courts. We've had people do a 100% court placement. And so, for instance, I've had students that come and said, look, I'm working, got a part-time job, I need to work, I can't go on front line, and I've done the community engagement placement. Is there something different that I can do? And we say, yeah, you know what? So you can go to whatever courtroom you want. You need to see so many criminal court cases, so many bail hearings, so many provincial offenses, trials. And so we tell you what it is that you need to observe and reflect on, and then you figure out how that fits into your schedule, and you go there and you do that. So that's another unique one. I had a student working with Coburg Police and ended up being pulled in by the chief and given a special assignment while he was there. And he came to me and said, you know, this isn't what I signed on for. And I said, well, just, you know what, life surprises you. Serendipity is a wonderful thing. Just ride this out and see what happens. And he came to me at the end and said, boy, was I wrong. I learned so much. That was a fantastic project for me to be able to get my hands on something like that at this point. And the chief said, if you ever want a recommendation to be hired somewhere, or if you're interested in coming to work here, come see me. And I'll seriously consider hiring you here. And if it's someplace else you want to go, I'll give you a glowing letter of recommendation, no questions asked.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Pat. And great response to that question. And again, Pat, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You have brought so much great insight and information about the Police Foundations program to us. And, you know, we love hearing your thoughts on everything. And thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. When people ask me if I'm retired, I tell them no, I'm recycled.
Everyone out there tuning in. Oh, sorry. For sure. Thanks again, Pat, for joining us. And to everyone out there tuning in, we appreciate you being here and we hope you keep well.